This is Bronwyn the Brave, back again to show you how to begin knitting the Afterthought Thumb. This is my Quiver Mitts. If you look back at the last video where I picked up these stitches off of the waste yarn, I had 8 stitches along the bottom and 9 stitches on the top. The reason for that was that I had an extra half stitch on the edge. It's better to be safe than sorry. But I looked and one of the stitches was just kind of wonky. It's better to look and see where the actual live stitches are coming from, and then you can pick up those extra 2 stitches on the edges wherever you want to fill the gap, really. So here I've got a tail. I'm going to leave a decent tail for closing up any holes that we might end up with. But we're going to try to minimize that if we could possibly can. So to begin with, I'm going to pick up 1 stitch on this edge. And this is the edge. If you look at the whole mitt, I'll try to get that in there. Here's the cuff, and here are the fingers. And this is actually the little twisted here. So we've got, you can picture our hand going to slide into this right here. So this is going to be the back of the hand right here, and this is the crook of the thumb. And so we're going to begin here on the lower right edge of these thumb stitches. So to begin, I have put in 1 needle just into any of these spaces along the edge in the gap between the 2 rows of knitting here. And this is the one place that it's okay to twist your stitches. So I'm going to knit into the back of this stitch that I've created, and still keeping a tail here for weaving in. Then I will continue knitting, and what I'm doing is I'm just going to follow what my stitches are telling me to do. If you can see, I've got a purl, 2 knits, 2 purls, and so on. And this is just the remnants of my chevron pattern that's continuing up the hand. I think I said it in my other video that this stitch pattern isn't going to be interrupted, and even though the thumb is going to be just standard 2x2 rib, if I don't have to have it broken up, then I'm going to try to prevent that if possible. So this stitch is going to be a purl, and I can actually get rid of this needle, and then we'll just continue around. Something that I usually forget to do, but I'm going to remember now, is to add a needle. We have 20 stitches on this thumb eventually, and if we can make it a little bit easier on ourselves, I will begin knitting with a 2nd needle here. You can rearrange these stitches however you want to. I try to keep my stitch repeats together so every needle begins with the same stitch. In this case it would be, grab another needle. Oops. In this case it would be a knit stitch at the beginning of every needle, just because my mind doesn't work correctly a lot of times. I just get carried away and start knitting, and I don't know about you, but 2x2 rib is knit, 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 purl, purl. So we're at the end of our first 8 stitches, plus that picked up stitch on the edge, and we're at the join between the top and the bottom stitches again. And you can either work this stitch in a purl, or 1 stitch isn't going to make a difference, especially on the corner like that. We're just going to find a spot to pick up once again. And purling through the back loop is kind of tricky sometimes. But I didn't actually purl it through the back loop, I just was trying to get it oriented onto the needle correctly. This side of the knitting isn't going to be as prone to holes. And we'll do one more stitch on this edge. And anywhere is going to be fine, just so you're not creating any more holes than necessary. And I picked it up the wrong way once again. Doesn't matter. As long as it gets knit. If you want to twist it, once again, not a bad idea. So now we have 2 knits, 2 purls. This one will be a knit. We'll do one more knit. And we've picked up 2 stitches on this edge, and see this? Got a little bit of a gap. Maybe we should redo this. It's always a good idea just to look at your knitting and double check. This wasn't actually a stitch, so I can drop that without it going anywhere. We'll try this one, and we'll twist it. It's just a little bit of trial and error. Don't be afraid to play around with it a little bit and get it oriented correctly. So we have it the normal way that we would knit this stitch. Got a lot of needles going on here. We'd normally knit into this stitch like this, but I'm gonna get this out of the way. We normally knit it this way. Instead, I'm gonna knit it through the back, so it's got a little twist in it. Just gonna close up that hole, and that's a lot better right there. Okay. So then our next stitch will be, get rid of that needle for a second. The next stitch, so we've got 2 purls, and knit, and then 2 more purls, double check my pattern here. 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls, knit, purl, times 2. So here is where it's not matching up right now, but that's okay because it's going to be in the crook of your thumb, and it's not going to be as obvious in that section of your hand. And before I do that, I'm going to grab my other needle, just to make it simpler when we're knitting all the way around. And you snug it up. So we have 1 knit there on the edge. Let's double check our counts here. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. We're doing good. We have 1 more stitch to pick up here on the edge. So we're going to find a space somewhere in here that could use another stitch. Try this right here. We're picking up these stitches on the edges because, number one, 16 stitches isn't quite enough to give us enough wiggle room in this part of our thumb, and just gives us a little bit more room. But then also it closes up these gaps because there's enough of a jump between the 2 rows of stitches there. that we need to bridge that gap. And picking up 2 gives us just a little bit more. And it makes it more of a circle rather than a rectangular little hole of knitting. So let's do the end, and I don't know why, but I always have it oriented the wrong direction. So I'm going to knit this through the back without catching that other stitch. Close up that hole. Get rid of that needle. Okay, so now we're back to the beginning, and I'm going to grab my tail. You can see that that first stitch gets a little bit enlarged just because the tail is loose. We're going to snug that and hang on to that as we knit the next round. And even though there is going to be a little bit of a gap there, sometimes it's hard because you might do it so great that it's hard to find that spot that you are joining it. Here's another scrap piece of yarn. So this is my trick, and I've done it here on the edge for showing how many repeats that I've done, but I also do it just to mark my, well, number one, to mark my beginning of the round, but so I can count how many rounds I've done. And I've already done 1, but sometimes it's, as long as I remember where I'm counting from, I'll be good. So it will continue around, and I will do as many rounds as I want, or if I'm going to do the convertible pattern, the convertible flap, I will stick to the pattern and just go around from there. Once again, this is my Quiver Mitts pattern, and I hope to see lots of brave works in progress in the future. Thanks for looking. Bye.